Hello, hello to each of you in your respective places. I know that you are doing fabulous wherever in the world you may be. I want to welcome each of you to another segment of Conversations in the Nick of Time. Our sponsors and supporters, Sparkman Pathway to Careers, KSTL 690, and Covenant Exchange. Want to send a big thank you to each and every one of them. I am your host, Nikki Roach, and those of you who are new to the platform, we explore everything leadership and leadership development, but we really tone and zone in on this whole concept of leadership excellence and leadership accidents. Funny, right? But we need all of that, both of those dimensions in regards to being successful. So when we talk about being successful on this platform, those of you who are familiar know we're talking about success as you define it, not according to the world. And that can look different, and it should look different. But in those differences, oftentimes we get lost or entangled in a scenario because why? We have to change. Change ends up staring us in the eye. Although change is something that we say, many of us will say, I was in leadership, we're innovative, we're creative, we're cutting edge, we are out of the box, not realizing how much each of those explains just a different way of presenting change to people who are listening and who are around. Everything must change. But how often do we resist it? I'm going to raise both my hands because I resist it, although I consider myself creative, cutting edge, out the box. We don't say best practices, but next practices. Well, to do something next, you've got to change. There has to be a shift, there has to be movement. And I'm so excited to have a guest today who can explain to us a little bit more as to how we can look this change eye to eye and how we can become better by having a way of gracefully embracing this whole concept and truth around change. Julia C. Freeland, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. Super excited to be here.
I know. And then let me just introduce you to some and present you to others. Julia C. Freeland is an author, coach, evolutionary change strategist, and founder of Revolve You. Her new book, which I am starting to fall in love with, Take Your Shoes Off First, a story about a simple idea with the power to change everything, is a short business parable that is getting rave reviews and inspiring people to engage in change all over the world. She lives in Seattle, and when she isn't hanging with her kids or playing beach volleyball, she teaches anyone who will listen about how to get through big change easier and faster. Welcome, Miss Julia. How are you?
Thank you. I am great. Good day. It's
Yeah.
sunny here in Seattle. So,
Oh
that's
my
always
God.
a good day.
I am just taken back by the title of this book that you have penned. Take your shoes off first. Let's just jump right in and explore, where did this title come from?
Oh, okay. Great. So, the expression, it's a common expression we use, which is take a walk in their shoes. One of those concepts and ideas that we think is a really great way to empathize and understand the perspective of another. Unfortunately, not many of us do this very well. And the reason for that is we forget that we have our own shoes on ourselves. So when you say that, take a walk in someone else's shoes, it's an incomplete statement, because in order to do it really effectively, you need to learn to take your shoes off first before you put on someone else's. If you just take a walk in somebody else's shoes, really what you're seeing is a version of your imagination that's heavily influenced by your experiences and your beliefs. So our experiences and our beliefs limit what we hear, what we see, and what we're able to understand. And this was one of the conversations that you and I were starting to connect on, which is so powerful. And it's one that I feel like people need to be having more often, understanding that when we come to the table, when we have a conversation, when we meet someone new, everything that we see has been pushed through our own filters, our own, that are made up of our beliefs and our experiences, where we grew up. But if we don't actually take account for those and think about and be aware, and this is one of the things, so rarely are we aware of those shoes that we wear.
Yeah.
If we don't take account of those, become aware of those, it becomes extremely difficult for us to see the perspective or the experiences of another. And it becomes even limiting in our ability to really seek to understand someone, to be open to new possibilities, because we don't even understand clearly how we're holding ourselves back.
Okay, so you said a mouthful.
Sorry.
No, that's a great thing. One being, oftentimes we say, walk a mile in their shoes, or you don't know unless, or what does it put on the shoe if the shoe fits, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Those different analogies. You raised a point I have not heard before, which is you can't put on shoes of someone else's without first taking yours off. But even in taking them off, it's still not true to what their experience is, because we are looking and feeling and seeing through our own lens.
Yeah. So there's this first step that we all need to take, which is to become aware of ourselves first.
Mm-hmm.
If we want to really connect, really reach out, really bridge the differences that divide us because of our radically different experiences, the first step is not to reach out and try to empathize with someone. The first step is to really understand ourselves. And it's to shine, to really look in that mirror. And it's not to just look at surface level. It's to ask those deep questions about what are the beliefs that we hold that shape the way we engage with the world, that shape what we think is possible, that shape what we understand.
Yeah.
Those are our shoes. And so often we don't even know we have them on. It's like we're walking around in a house with our shoes on and have no idea what we're tracking all over the place.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. That visual is so, that is so clear, because you're so right. So in my home, we do take shoes off at the door.
Yep.
To not track stuff, germs, filth, throughout the whole house.
Mm-hmm.
That visual, oh my gosh, this is going to be a deep conversation. So, but it's good, because you also mentioned the fact that before putting on other shoes or looking outward, we have to first consider ourselves. Mm-hmm. I am such an advocate for that. I know oftentimes people will ask me, how are you doing? How are you doing today? Or what's going on? And so I'm like, I'm doing really good inside and out. And I always say inside and out, because oftentimes we are so capable of putting on a facade, so capable of presenting what we think others want to see and hear and feel when we show up. And I'm a big believer and component of, when I enter a room, I need to shift the atmosphere in a positive way, but I can't shift if I'm not proper. Mm-hmm. But oftentimes that's a hard thing to do, though, to I say press pause, to shift and look on the inside. We're not even still enough. And I think some of us realize, even with the pandemic, that, oh my gosh, I need to sit and just like think and have silence. And that's hard for some.
Yeah, I think that the pandemic it shined a very bright light on many things for many people. And I think the reason we're seeing the whole great resignation idea, and we are experiencing a revival of really investing in our humanity, and a revival in looking more holistically at the world, is that the pandemic gave us that opportunity to hit pause, to be able to be silent with ourselves, to be able to understand and really see the impact of our actions on a daily basis, that daily grind, that certainty that we walk through life with. And one, realize, oh, wow, there is an impact to our actions of driving everywhere and constantly being in the car. And there is an impact to the choices that we're making around the job that we subscribe, that we agree to go to. There is an impact to how we're moving through life without taking a moment to pause. And I think for me, that was one of the biggest motivators behind writing this book and in all the work that I do, was having some pretty deep aha moments myself, where I had to come face to face with the impact of beliefs that I held that I was not aware of. And I might be able to, if you had asked me, I might have been able to tell you what I believed, but to understand the ripple effect of those beliefs and how they caused me to put up boundaries around what I believed was possible. I think that yes, there's a lot of reason for us to be more quiet and sit with ourselves and have those reflective conversations. And one that I really want to encourage people to do is just, and that's kind of, the book too, it takes the main character through a journey of beginning to see himself more clearly through this eight stage process that is closely aligned to the framework I use to coach people.
So you mentioned the boundaries that surrounded, that allowed you not to see so clearly, but also not to get what you really wanted or desired. Unpack that a little bit for us.
Yeah. So I had 3 very big life-altering, drop you to your knees experiences happen in the course of a decade.
Okay.
And the first, for me, it helped me see that I was far stronger than I ever imagined I was. It also helped me see a part of life that I had been completely blinded to.
Okay.
So what happened was I was pregnant with my second child, and 10 days before she was born, I was measuring small. So they asked me to go in and have a ultrasound done. And they told me after that ultrasound, we had a meeting with a doctor, and they told me that they weren't sure that my daughter was going to survive once she was separated from my body. Her heart flowed backwards. And in that moment, my certainty of what I thought I could handle caused me to want to eject her, eject my life, just throw everything back out. It was like, it was this immediate human nature defense to protect and preserve my life as I knew it. And my response was not pretty. I yelled at the doctor to take her right away, which of course then thankfully was not an option. In the next, year, 2, 3, actually, she's 17 now, which is lovely. I'm sorry, actually, she's not 17. Her brother is 17. She is 16, just turned 16. I got too many kids, 3 of them. She's 16 now. And
Blessing.
Through this journey, you're right, she is a blessing, like beyond. I call her my biggest life gift.
Yeah.
Because the experience of her birth, the drop you to your knees and make it so that I didn't know if I could actually keep moving forward. And all that we went through with her, having to give her to the doctors at 3 months old to have a extremely rare surgery done where she literally died on the table as they were operating on her, and they were able to bring her back. And the without getting too emotional about this journey, it flung me into a world of uncertainty where there literally was never a day from that moment on that I trusted that everything was going to be okay, that my day was going to unfurl the way I had planned it to. And it taught me that the beliefs I had, this idea that my life was supposed to roll out in a certain way, it limited the way I moved through life. It caused me to be way too focused on the vision I was kind of shooting for, rather than being present with the world and the day that I was having. So
Wow.
the uncertainty of life, the uncertainty of her in my life, has caused me to be much more present with every day. And to even be in moments where she becomes or has been my pause button. She's the person, and just the memory and the experience of her and what she's brought to my life has been the person that helps me when I'm angry and frustrated about things and I just like things are not going right, or I'm really stressed. She helps me reset, like help that, hit that pause button so that I can take a moment to really realize where I am, like in the moment in that day, and be like what you were saying, I'm really good on the inside and the out. And that even on those days when the out is not so great, I can check in and make sure that the inside is good. Or when the inside is really suffering, I know what it takes to help me right that ship, right that what's happening inside of me.
Yeah. It's thank you so much for your vulnerability and your transparency. Um, I can so align with v- life occurrences, unexpected life occurrences that causes us to, and this is, we're still talking about change.
Mhm. Big
um,
change.
where things, big change, where I'm just coming out, of a life changing, big change scenario and situation. And it has totally caused me to reset in a way that I could not have planned. And I think losing someone, um, you never know how you're going to respond until something happens, and you're like, God forbid, we're not um, wanting to fear that we will transition out of this life. We all have our time. However, when those who are closest to us, those who are you have in your immediate sphere of life, and those individuals are um, they're they're called to rest. And for me, I totally identify with this whole idea of being present. That is a word I've been using a whole lot lately, because what you said in regards to being so focused, so sure of what was to come.
Mhm.
Um, I can say a little bit of that for me, but not just what I wanted, but also what others. We can get wrapped up in what others, like, oh my gosh, I know one day you're going to fill in the blank. Oh my
Mhm.
gosh, you're going to be the next fill in the blank. And we
Yeah.
began to live up to that. But that's not the change that we need. And it also creates those boundaries, as you were mentioning, in regards to being truly, we're on this whole being authentic, being your whole self and living your best life, all these different cliches and words that we use, but we're not even the real person that's showing up. And something comes along for
No.
some of us, and causes us, like you said, a life pause, or an individual or a circumstance or situation that will come. And so priorities shift. You're
Yes.
still after what, what's, that call that's upon your life. You're still after that. You're still wanting to serve in that capacity, but it's almost undescribable, because I know for me, I'm not chasing anything. That chase is gone. It's like I just want to be. I want to be, and when I'm being, I want to have impact.
Yeah.
But understanding this might be the last time.
Yes. Yes. I believe we as a culture have spent far too long subscribing to this idea that stability is the way we want to live.
But what is stability?
Exactly.
Who defines stability?
And this idea of a stable, predictable upward trend for our lives, there's something about it that discounts our human aspect of ourselves. And we, if you think about, if you switch the narrative on uncertainty,
Mhm.
uncertainty can have the power. It's a beautiful experience
Yeah.
to help you be more aware of every day and more present in the moment, more aware of how you're living, because you don't know what is going to happen tomorrow. And I think it enables you to kind of accept more the holistic aspect of what it means to be human.
Yeah.
And humans were born to change. We are change machines. Like, we were made to change. It's the one thing that we are born being really good at doing. And yet we try really hard to hold on to status quo and to be the same. But really, being the same and holding on to status quo is like a really quick way to die.
Yeah.
So it
And
is
not just physically.
oh, it is a quick way to die in all kinds of ways. Mentally, like, I'm at an age where all my friends' parents and mine are getting older, and I think it's one of those things the idea that we buy into, that you retire at a certain age, and then you just kind of, I don't know, fade off into the distance, like you golf for the rest of your life. I don't know, sit on the porch drinking your Mai Tais.
That's
But this
okay.
it sounds great, but
Yeah.
honestly, it's not. It goes completely against our human nature. We want to have purpose and vision and be growing. That's a part of what we need. We want to change. That's our body. Like, and if we don't actively pursue in growing to change, we will decline in change.
Wow.
And that's where we have to reset this narrative that changes something that's hard, or changes something that we don't like, or that we want to avoid. If you think about it, change is actually something that's really good for you and for me and for our whole community, our world.
But nothing will happen if it doesn't change, right?
No.
Like nothing,
Well,
like the weather changes, and it goes through our seasons. I know I'm in the Midwest, so we have our 4 seasons, and like for real, all 4 seasons.
yeah.
And but it takes the snow to nourish the ground, and then the flowers begin to pop out the ground in March, and it's like amazing, like the cycle that
Yeah.
changes. But if we missed one, guess what? We wouldn't, just like we learned, some of the grapes, because of the climate, didn't change properly, and we didn't get as much wine, this year, and the peaches and
No,
all
say
this.
it's not so.
I'll send you some. But it's so interesting. And then even to shift and pivot into, when we talk about leaders, and those of you who are familiar with the platform, everyone's a leader. It's just a matter of how it is that you show up in that, and oftentimes us believing that you can really lead from where you are. It's not about title, but oftentimes we can find ourselves wanting to lead, but we lead where we're comfortable. So we end up going back to when you're saying dying in different ways, but also not really living up to the expectation or the vision that we even have for ourselves, because we are celebrating yesterday's victories when there's a whole bunch more in front of us. Share a little bit about that, because I've been through that experience recently to where I've made a shift in life with some of my professional endeavors. And with that, it's left me feeling like I'm not as strong of a leader as I once was.
For sure. And I think, yes, I mean, this is a great topic, because so a couple of things here. One, what I became really fascinated by was the kind of change that we are facing today, and what we are starting to see challenging businesses and leaders and employees, the workforce, everybody more frequently, and what we're up against when you consider climate change, or you consider what's happening as far as pollution goes, or what's happening just with our world, how it is just seems to be at odds with, like, it's pushing up against, like, we have hit the brakes, we've hit the limits of what's possible given our current best practices.
Mhm.
And what's happening, also because of the advent of the technologies that are being invented, is we are creating situations that basically new conditions for life that are asking each and every one of us to not just add something new to our life, but to go through a transformation.
Mm.
And that these kind of changes, it's so much different. They're way different than what leaders have led, change management initiatives. They led various different initiatives, and what we've built all these change management philosophies and approaches to help people through change. But the kind of change we've been talking about in the past has been like, okay, we're going to add a new process. Okay, you're going to have a new role. Maybe you get new education around how to do that role. But the kind of change we're up against now is much what you're talking about. It's this idea of I have to completely take on a new identity.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of people that, I'm 50, and so this age range that I'm in, the Gen Xers, we're all in this weird state where we have a lot of, of a career left. And yet many people are in careers that are dying. And so it puts us, we're like a lot, I've coached people that are like, hold on. When I was young, they told me that if I did college and I just kept on going, I'd get promotion, and I'd be an expert, and then I'd be in charge, and I'd be like, yay, I get to retire. But now we're in a spot where that's not possible anymore. And we have a lot of people having to do this reinvention curve, whether they wanted to or not. Now we're going to get on that, are actively, engaged in that, which is so absolutely lovely.
Oh.
And I have reinvented my career many times, so I can totally feel where you are. There is this moment when we actively take that leap to reinvent our identity, where we have to accept that there is a part of us we have to let go of.
Mm.
And we, whether this is transitioning from being a single person to being a married couple, or being a married couple, or being an individual to being a parent, or a parent of a child that goes off. There's all these different transition stages that naturally happen in life, that we have to let go of those beliefs that we held, those ideas of what we're limited by, what we could do, what we couldn't do, what was possible, what wasn't possible. And if we don't let go of those, and this is where I'm going to get it back to that whole change management philosophies, there seemed to be in the past a much more of an emphasis on this idea that change meant adding something to our lives.
Mm-hmm.
When you're talking about transformational change, you have to go through that part where you let go. And there is a grieving associated with that. And then there's a messy middle part. And that messy middle part is where actually I think is the most beautiful place, because this is when you get to have everything be new again. So
Oh my
again,
gosh, that's easier said than done.
it is so much easier said than done, but it is also it's a script, kind of to use April's words on Worth the Fuck's book.
Oh yes,
It's a script that we need to shift in our head. And if you start thinking about that, kind of finding ourselves in the bottom when we feel absolutely miserable about the fact that I don't feel like I'm an expert in anything. Because believe me, I can tell a story about that one where it's cost me a lot. In fact, it cost me my job. And I know how hard it is, but if you can get through that part where you accept that you have to let go of that former identity, there's a beautiful, wonderful land waiting for you. One that's filled with growth.
I mean, you hit it right. You unpacked that perfectly, because that's exactly what it is. Now that I'm sitting here listening, it is releasing that former identity, because we're trying to bring that with us, even though we've grabbed a hold of this change and this opportunity to explore new possibilities, which means change, but we're still dragging this other, the old self into this new space. And you cannot have, as they say, you can't have not necessarily the victim, but the victim and the victory cannot cohabitate. Like, you've got to give up, and I'm not calling it the victim, I need another word, but the past, you can't, the past and the present, you're not trying to have that coexist. You're gonna pick one. Your foot's gonna be in one of them. Going back to the whole shoe analogy, your feet's gonna be. You can't have it in both. You've got to move forward.
Yeah,
and that is so. Oh my God.
Well, and
that was freeing. That's freeing.
Good. The other, one of the ideas that I really like too is this. I believe we subscribe to an idea that change is just adopting something. But adopting just means adding. Adapting is very different. Adapting is that process of letting go. You can't fully adapt to a new condition of your life or a new vision for your life until you consciously let go. Because if you don't, the result is overwhelm. So you can see a lot of people being overwhelmed right now today as we try to manage living in the two worlds of real life versus virtual life, or managing remote work and whatever it might be. It's when we try to live in those two worlds like that, what ends up happening is we end up becoming overwhelmed, because we try to measure our success by old standards.
Yes.
And this is what's happening with leaders too. Like, leaders are like, you can see leaders do it in a couple of different ways, but employees all over are like, I'm going to measure by old standards. Like, I need to do this, this, and this, and this, and this, but by new standards, I have to do all of this. And they just simply don't have time to do all of that. It's not possible. So again, coming back to the idea, if organizations and leaders don't go through the process of saying, okay, what were those shoes that we had on that subscribed? What did we subscribe to that meant success in the old world?
Right.
Now that we're in the new world, what does success mean? Do any of those transfer over? Do those beliefs, are they still relevant? Or are they not serving us? And for you, in the situation you're in, same thing. Ask yourself, does this belief about what I needed to do serve me in my new vision of who I want to be? And if it doesn't, how can I let go of all the things that are associated with that belief so that I can help alleviate? And I think actually a perfect example, you were saying how you kind of had to shift around things to be able to handle dealing with the radio show while also doing, would you like to share?
Yes, I
Since
know.
you
Yes.
are
So
so close.
I have been in school for the last like 3 years, 3.5. I did it for 4 years. I had to take a year off, but I have 2 weeks left
Woo woo.
to finish my classes for my doctorate degree in higher ed leadership and administration. And then it's on to drafting this dissertation, which I've already started. So
And I'm
yes, so life is just, and then I started a new role at a new institution, totally different culture. Um, and then the radio, like everything with the radio shifted and changed because I had to learn how to do everything from a home studio and build a home studio, which I am not a techie person. So all that change
yeah.
has happened, and then loss of loved ones, um, several, and then with this last one, um, totally being unexpected, and so you have all this change, and usually I can see, but I learned that's the control. Usually I can see where I'm going, but that's control. Me controlling the outcome. Now I can't. Like I have to be present. I have to be in the moment.
Yeah, just to get through every day. And how has that shifted your outlook for your dissertation or for your future career, like your visions of like what you want? How has that shifted things?
It has shifted my thinking and my compassion, first towards myself, but towards others, and to have a heightened level of grace when it comes to engagement, but also when it comes to completing tasks. Why? Because we're all bringing different things to a situation or a project, but also I'm very sensitive to, I know we use this word self-care, but self-care is real. And I am more sensitive to setting boundaries. Like I've always been one to thrive in having much going on, but my much has shifted. It has to be in alignment. I got out of a whole bunch of different stuff over these past 2 years because they were not necessarily in alignment with what my call is. I've answered that call. I'm actually leaning more into that call. And it's all the same thing, but it shows up on different platforms. But I get to choose now what those platforms are, not me hearing from the committee, and the committee is the voice that we have.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm so curious, how did your perspective of yourself change over this last?
Are you trying to get me to cry? No.
I do have a gift for it, but I'm not going to do it.
I feel it. I felt it, but coming earlier, and that's why I had to like slow my talk down, slow my pace down. I am enough. I am worth it. Even though I question that, from time to time, but I am enough. I am worth it. I believe that. I can do all things, I say, through Christ. And I'm here for a reason that's bigger than self. Again, back to not chasing anything at this point in life. I am secure and who I am, and so secure to where it's like, what I have, how can it, what do you want? What do you need? Here you go. Like I'm not clinging to anything in a way that at younger years, because of the promises of society and all of that. Nah, it's just, I'm moving at my pace. As I say, it's work-life harmony for me, not balance, because to me, balance, something's always going to be out of balance when you're trying to put different things on the same scale. And Yeah, it's just, but there's a lightness of being. Like I like being around myself. Um, and I'm not even saying this stuff to be funny, but I grew into it. I have literally grown into that. And and my well-being helps me with the well-being of others. Because it's not about me. It's about how can I help someone else along this journey. Because yeah, to feel this light and to have this, to understand the difference between joy and peace.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's what I cling to.
Say more on that.
Mm, as you were saying earlier, how having gone through enough of life and having different experiences, like your daughter can recenter you, can cause you to smile, can cause you to catch your breath. Like these life experiences, these recent ones have caused me to do that in regards to this may be happening and things may be falling around, but I'm like, it'll work itself out. It's all good. I am not going to get frazzled. Even um, working in a different environment where it's like having to learn everything all over at I say older age, but at an older age, when you've been so used to certain things, and here it is, you've been a rock star because you've been somewhere so long, and you're a rock star. But now you're in a place to where you have to move that's back to that compassion and grace for others, but also for yourself. Because you're still that rock star, but not the rock star, as you said, that identity. I love that. It totally makes sense. And when I said freeing, literally, that something just lifted.
Good. That's awesome. I'd love to hear that. It's funny you said rock star because I actually have there's a video of me somewhere along the way going like I was the queen of the hill right before I got fired. So, and it was that experience of me fighting change, not wanting to go along with the change of my organization and my company because I didn't like the idea of falling back down to the bottom. I wanted to stay in the rock star status and that rock star stage. But, when we get put into situations like what my 3 big things did for me, and one of them was getting fired from my dream job, it forces basically forces us to really face the hand we've been dealt. There's no way to throw up our defenses to stop it from happening. Like I tried to stop, this whole changing my career thing from happening. It resulted in me getting fired, which then, of course, I just was prolonging the inevitable. I still had to shift and change. Because that's what the universe, or that's what actually just this world that we're living in was asking me to do. It didn't matter how much of an expert I was at what I used to do. The world is as saying like, actually, that expertise is no longer helpful. Yeah. We don't need that anymore. So you have a choice. Are you going to let go of that? Or are you going to just die with that? You're going to, what are you going to stand on? And one of the first things that we go through when we get tumbled off of our mountain, and if it's something that's not, against our will, we didn't actually actively choose it. In fact, actually, it's the same if we actively choose it, but we're just more graceful about going through this process. But you touched on it several times. This idea of self-care is incredibly important. The light within you, if it's not there, you don't have the capacity to help others.
Correct.
So the very first step when we're going through these big transitions, when we do fall off that mountain, when we find ourselves in the pit of despair, is to first invest in ourselves, invest in finding out who are we. And it's okay. I'm going to tell you this, Nikki, it's okay to look back every so often and go, I was a rock star.
Yeah.
It's okay. I can do that again.
That's
And to say like,
the point right there.
yeah, it's
Do
like,
it again.
I've been through hell and back. I made it. And that's where that becomes the source of the light that drives you and keeps you, balanced, even when the world is tumultuous and shifting all around you. It's understanding and really knowing yourself and trusting in those traits that are inherent to you, not necessarily some skill that you just learned yesterday. It's your driving force. It's what makes you you and how you show up no matter where you go. That's what really can propel you forward. And then so that you can take that next step to understand, okay, how can I help and engage with people in a different way to help them along in their journeys? So I love that you were saying all that.
Yeah. And I always say you can't lead where you've not been.
Yeah, I believe that too.
Can't give what you don't have. And
Yes.
so until there are some things that you have to go through, um, so go through it. And I know again, it's
Yeah.
easier said than done, but go through it because there's something on the other side of that change that is going to propel you into something even greater than what you even thought you were planning for.
Yeah.
That's my thought process around it these days.
That's a perfect thought process. In my experience of watching myself evolve and then going through the process of actually interviewing and talking to other people who had been through these big, huge life evolving experiences, there's a process that we all go through, and it's human nature. And that human nature process, once we understand it, it's easier to be able to kind of calm those defenses, which is what you basically are talking about. You're talking about the fact that your experiences have helped you cultivate the capacity to calm your defenses so that you can keep on moving in that natural change process, so that you can keep finding that stability and the uncertainty and finding your guidance and your I hate to say your North Star because I wanted to say it like it's your daily North Star. It's just like your direction, your daily direction. And that is alignment with your values. It's understanding what is important to you. I mean, I think that's one of the most beautiful things about experiences like what you're talking about. When you do lose somebody, or when you lose some aspect of yourself or some aspect of your life, it snaps everything into incredible focus of like what's truly important. I mean, I think that's what COVID did for all of us.
Oh yes.
It helped us go, oh my God, what I really, I mean, for me, because I'm a truly social person, I'm like, I
Right.
desperately need my people.
But oh my gosh, wasn't it, when you had that one person that you were able to see, you're like, ah!
Totally. Yeah,
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
so good.
Right.
So I'm curious, when you, as you shift into, I know that you and I have a joint passion for helping women in particular,
Yes.
and helping women, break through those boundaries, break through those ideas that hold them back. Not only, breaking through what's happening out in the world, but it's also breaking through what's happening inside your in and out thing that you were talking about
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
So one of the first book I wrote, which I did not publish yet, but the first book was actually all about helping moms go through the similar journey, like to the guy who's in the book, Take Your Shoes Off First.
Mhm.
Being able to see how all of these old ideas about who they are have been holding them back. And
Wow.
it's this collision between the way we've been raised to believe what it means to be a good mom,
Mhm.
and this opportunities that like just our generation was kind of being given, which is like, you can rise to be whatever you want to be, there are no limits. And it's that collision between these expectations that just don't jive, but thinking that we can do both of them. And I'm curious, in your research, when you're starting to do, or this dissertation that you want to do, I know you want to focus specifically on women becoming leaders and how we in companies help, organizations help women. Have you seen a collision of expectations from both like how women were raised versus like what is common in business ideas? Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And so that is part of the question, the survey, in
Mm,
regards to even also what is the stimulus behind their motivation that they bring to the workplace, but also what is it within the workplace that also causes that drive, and where does it intersect? But where does it disconnect?
mm,
Because there could be some gaps in there as well, that we may need to lean into from either side. So to better prepare women for leadership, and I say better prepare meaning to get them there, because we right now the pipeline is clogged, but everybody says they want women in leadership, but we need to. I'm going to help you.
I love
That's
it.
the whole point of it, right?
Yes. That
But
is the
yeah,
hope.
that's a great observation and inquiry to consider. Thank you.
Yeah, well, that I think that we as in the learning and development profession
Mhm.
uh, tend to, and just organizations in general, I mean, I even say like our school systems, we tend to operate so much at the task level.
Mhm.
And we're like, okay, here's this task that you need to do. Here's the skill that you need in order to be able to do that task. Here's kind of the environment. We'll make sure you have the tools and the environment set up to make sure that you can do that skill and that task. But if you really want people to completely shift the way they engage with the world, to be able to truly evolve, which I really do feel like there is a component that we are missing, that women have got to evolve to this next version of themselves if they want to reach um, those levels of leadership. And
Yeah.
we are seeing some people do it, but I don't believe that it is just a construct issue within businesses. I believe that that is part of it.
Yeah.
I think the other part of it are these deeply ingrained beliefs and expectations about what it means to be a good woman or a
Yeah.
good lady, a part of the world, whatever it is, that can end up holding us back, creating blinders, putting blinders on
Oh yeah.
us
Oh yeah.
for what we want to, what we have to do and how to engage.
Oh, I totally agree with that in regards to even, even when I consider myself and the progress and the advancement and the things that I brought to, even I remember my first leadership role where I went out and every payday, I went to Lord and Taylor and bought me what I call a little man suit with the little top stitching, because I thought there was a look I had to have. Where did that come from? A number of places I can point to. However, there was my belief system that I had to
Mhm.
look a certain way, talk a certain way, which totally stripped me in a sense of being authentic.
Mhm. Yeah.
Because I mean, try wearing some shoes, back to the shoes that are not your size. That's uncomfortable. That impacts everything. You don't
Yeah.
even stand straight. You don't even communicate properly because you're in pain. This is not right. It's the same thing, like you have to show up in what's proper for you. Your
Mhm.
your shoes, so to speak. And I learned that and be comfortable with it. They don't have to look like everybody else's, and they shouldn't. Now that brings us to our, my other passion, diversity, equity, and inclusion, to where no, we always want to fit in, but we're created to be individuals. What is it? I think Miles Monroe says something about, we were born originals, but we spend all of our time trying to be carbon copies.
Mm.
I think many of us find ourselves in that cycle at some point. Some of us get a chance to jump off, catch our breath, and okay, let me try this again.
Mhm.
And we're able to find our footing and our shoes. The
I'm so curious about what you're saying though too, because I'm a big proponent that if you want to be heard, you need to speak the language of others.
Yeah.
And so there is this element of, I have two, that was one saying, and the other saying is like, to be seen, let your light shine. And so
Mhm.
there's this idea of finding that balance between being independently you
Yes.
and yet also being collaboratively us,
And I get that.
and
I get
figuring out, and so a lot of my work is around how do we help people tap into the humanity of us all
that. Hmm.
and find those connections beyond all those beliefs that were taught to us as we grew up. How do we get back to that beginning when we're born all the same human connection? How do we connect on that level? That's one of the that's what just it's a passion of mine, is trying, and I'm excited to see the journey of a lot of L&D organizations, and just even in K through 12 school systems becoming much more focused on developing the human traits, or these human skills, which I call human skills as opposed to just soft skills,
Right.
that help us be the best version of ourselves so that we can come together and find the commonalities. Regardless of how individual we are,
Yeah.
we can still find and connect and bond over those common passions.
Oh yeah. Oh
So
yeah. This has been amazing. This conversation. Do you promise to come back?
I do. I promise to come back. I would love it. Thank you. And you promise to have me.
Yes, I do. And I think I'll be your way at some point. So I'll
I
follow up.
know.
No,
Come.
I'll let you know. Those of you who are listening, I know you have been just totally blessed, and your eyes and ears and heart um have just been opened, and Miss Julia Freeland has given you something now to put in your hands to get to action and to call out those things which need to be, and to put away those things that shouldn't anymore. Those old identities, for example. You want to learn more about her, you want to go and visit Revolve You, RevolLveyou.com. She's also active on LinkedIn, our place of acquaintance, and Clubhouse. I've got to check you out on Clubhouse. I have been off of everything for the last month.
Oh yeah, I bet.
so, so in closing, one thing, you have the platform to tell the audience one thing in regards to committing to this understanding that they can embrace change, and they can also make room for better. What one thing would you tell them?
I would tell them, or I'll tell all of you listening, to believe in the power of human nature. We as humans are capable of much, so much more than we dream. You are capable of so much more than you know and that you dream. We use some small, very small percentage of what our brain is capable of doing. And if you watch people and you look over history, what happens when people get together to work together to do amazing things, impossible things, humans continually, time and time and time again, triumph to break through new boundaries. And so I am a huge human lover. Like, I just believe in humans and have have faith. I have faith in our humankind, in our human nature. And no matter what we're facing today, I believe that if we all learn how to calm our defenses and tap into those natural instinctual traits of what it means to truly be human, embracing change is something that should be natural. It is natural to you if you let go of your defenses, if you start seeing and believing in the power of being human and our capacity to work together. Because when you harness your human nature will work for you, and it's also